So we're moving on to step number 2, which I said earlier on is, for me, and actually as part of situational leadership, is really the heart of what situational leadership, what it's all about. And the key is making sure that we are assessing, from a leader perspective, as it says here, current performance readiness. Okay, now so I want to just highlight the definitions in terms of how we define what performance readiness is all about. We've touched on some of these key points already, but I kind of want to bring it together as a starting point for what we're going to do next. So it says here that performance readiness is the degree of demonstrated ability and willingness to accept and be accountable for the performance of a specific task or activity at a sustained acceptable level. Now, there's lots of words there, and that's quite a big statement to digest. So one of the things I want to do is just to kind of break that down a little bit more so. So when we look at, actually the key of breaking this down is to show that there are lots of variables that need to be taken into consideration when we assess someone's performance readiness. It's not a case of can they do it, there's lots more that goes behind that. So if we first just take the word here, is the degree of demonstrated ability. So when we talk about demonstrated, what does that mean to you? What does the word demonstrated mean?
It means that they actually doing it rather than just talking about it.
Absolutely. So yeah, it pretty much says what it does on the can. Demonstrated is have they physically done it? Have they demonstrated an ability to perform a particular task? But it's not just about the demonstration. We've also got the words ability and willingness, which we're going to come to in a moment. Accept and be accountable for. So this is about the level of desire that they have for that specific task. Again, I want to reinforce the point, this is task specific. For the performance of a specific task or activity at a sustained acceptable level. So what does sustained mean to you, and what does acceptable level? Because they are two separates, but I'm putting them in one sentence there.
I see sustained as being not just one-off.
Yeah.
Being able to do that over a period of time or a number of occurrences.
Yeah. And acceptable level?
To the required standard, the required level of competence, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So with regards to sustained, depending on the task, that could be 1 or 2 times, or it could be a number of times until that person is doing it to that acceptable level. Now, if I reference back my parallel parking, okay, in order to get to this point between where we get to the more follower driven, there has to be a link there between that individual can perform that task or activity, as it says here, to a sustained acceptable level. So that may well be that person could have done that task 2 or 3 times, parallel parked, and nailed it. Wonderful. And then they'll be put forward for their test. Where, on the flip side of that could be a real struggle point. And the fact is that one task could then stop them getting to their test quicker. But until they do that to a sustained acceptable level, they can't progress on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to just touch back now onto the ability and willingness part of what's also referenced in the definition. So ability is about the knowledge. It's about the knowledge and experience and the skill that the individual group demonstrates in a particular task or activity. When we talk about the willingness, this is a combination of 3 things, 3 variables. This is about the confidence, commitment and motivation to accomplish a specific task or activity that the individual group demonstrates. Okay. Now, having just done the hobby activity, you will have noticed what changed between somebody's ability. We had everyone lined up. What changed between someone's ability to do a particular task opposed to their willingness if it was not their chosen hobby? Nick, tell me what your thoughts are on that.
I noticed that if it was not their chosen hobby and something that didn't really float their boat, their willingness went down dramatically. So their ability might have been there, but their willingness went down.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, you can have someone who's very willing
Absolutely.
to do something, but the fact that they don't have that ability, again, when we look at willingness and ability as combined when we're assessing someone's performance readiness, very easily there can be elements of that missing. And, you know, despite John's best effort at trying to influence us as to why, when he described why his hobby, you know, why he was good at it, in fact that actually changed, or why he particularly liked that hobby, some of us, our willingness changed. Yeah, we moved up the scale. Did ability change?
No.
No, because that person, just from hearing that bit of information, that doesn't change their ability to do the task. All it does is it might draw them closer. Sorry, that's a separate part that I didn't mention. That then draws them closer towards perhaps maybe gaining the ability and their willingness to partake. So what I really want to kind of draw out from that activity is the two variables there, ability and willingness, which are dynamic, and there is movement between the two. And in your books you will find that this particular image that you see here kind of is going to grow over what I'm about to share with you now. But I'll ask you just to go through what I'm going to go through with the slides, and then we will refer back to your workbook shortly.
Good.
So performance readiness, as we know, is task specific, and no particular place where somebody sits in terms of how ready they are in the performance readiness scale that we talked about. That's not good nor bad. By identifying it and being clear on where they're at, as a leader, gives you the best chance to adapt your style accordingly. And we talked about that earlier on this morning. As effective leaders will do that. They will be versatile, and they'll have the knowledge and skill, and know what they're looking for in order to make that right decision. So let's break down ability a little bit more. Ability is about looking at the knowledge, experience and the skill. So this is about the knowledge part. Do they know how to? The experience, have they done that particular skill before? Have they gained that experience? And the skill is doing. Are they actually doing that task at the moment? Okay. When we then move on to the willingness part, we're looking at the confidence, commitment and motivation. So with the confidence, can they do it? Often you hear a lot of people say that they lack in confidence, and you might want to ask yourself the question, or ask them the question, are they doing it now? Can they do it? Commitment, do they want to? Have they got that will to want to do it? And the motivation, sorry, I've probably got those two bits mixed up there. And the motivation, do they want to do it? As adults, we become very clever at hiding the things that we're not so good at doing. So if I was to ask you the question, how easy is it, if we take a bit of time as a leader, how easy is it for us to identify someone's ability to do something?
I think you can do it pretty successfully through observation and having conversations with your people, and particularly asking those searching questions. So I think you can do it, but you can't just go on gut feel.
No, you're absolutely right. And one of the challenges we have here at Smiths Medical is that for some of us, we've already identified the people that we are influencing are people who are in different countries. How does that affect our ability to see the skill level? How do you do that now?
I would imagine that you have to have those conversations via Skype or conference calling, which is focusing upon what they are doing or not doing at this moment in time.
Yeah. And actually, Nick, you mentioned earlier on, and you hit the nail on the head by saying it's about the questioning, which ultimately is one of the only methods you have in terms of establishing what they are doing now. Of course, you've got to rely on giving you the right information, but you could ask for evidence.
True.
You know, it might be appropriate to ask them, or even to ask their peers, or depending on what it is that you're doing, not because you want to check up on what they're doing, but because in order for you to assess if you're about to allocate a task and identify someone's performance readiness, is, well, what evidence do I have above and beyond what I've had on a conversation, which is different than me being in the room right now and saying, okay, right, everyone, let's go and make a cup of tea. Yeah, I can physically see what you're doing. I can't do that when you're 2,000 miles away. So I acknowledge the fact that there are some challenges that we have as a leader in influencing, and we don't always have that ability. Now, saying that that's a bit of a challenge, willingness. How do we identify that?
That's got to be through discussion.
Yeah.
Observation again, but discussion, because you could get that quite wrong.
Yeah. So committing the motivation. Yeah, no problem. I can do that. Yeah, I've done that task a million times or something similar. Yeah, yes, boss. You know, just using that as an example. You know, they want you to hear that, you know, they're willing and they're motivated, but it's very challenging to actually establish genuinely how willing they are. We're going to break that down in a moment, just to look out for some telltale signs of how can we make the best judgment we can based on the information that we have available to us. And remember, many of us said earlier on that a lot of our influence comes from kind of in the moment. So the key of using situational leadership is a very easy kind of a step-by-step process which enables you to make answer some very simple questions, and by doing that, to give you a tool or model to assess where you think the person's performance readiness is. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so I'm going to put away from the slide a second, and I want to draw your attention to this flip chart here. So we've talked about that the KENS here is about the knowledge, experience, and skill. Okay, so we're talking about the top line here of ability. And remember, when we're talking, the title of the slide here, current performance readiness. We're not talking about what this individual did 2 years ago. When we are assessing someone's performance readiness, we are looking at the here and now. What are they currently performing? The fact that I've delivered numerous courses over the time, this might be the first time I've done situational leadership, my performance readiness is going to be very different for this course opposed to courses I've done hundreds of times before. Assuming those hundreds of other courses I've done, I'm doing to a good standard. So, knowledge, experience and skills equals ability. We're looking at currently performing. Are we just focusing on whether they're capable? Is that just our sole deciding factor?
No.
No, why not?
Because you could ask whether somebody was capable. And yeah, they might be, but it doesn't mean that they're actually doing it.
Absolutely. So would it be fair to say we could put a cross through this? This is not a deciding factor, okay? What about can they? Yeah, I can do that.
No.
No? Okay, so shall we put a cross through that?
Yeah.
Alright. What about are they?
Yeah.
So when we're referencing current performance, we're looking at that specific skill. Would it be appropriate to ask the question, are they doing that now?
Yes.
So we're going to put 2 lines under that. We're not going to cross it out, we're going to put 2 lines. Because absolutely, and I want us to understand why I have discounted these 2 and why I've asked you that question. because often it slips in, yes, they're capable, we're making decisions on the fact they're capable, we're assessing somebody's readiness on the fact, yeah, they've done that, they can do that. Well, whether they can or whether they can't, if we haven't identified their ability and willingness combined, that's not going to tell, that alone is not going to tell us. But are they? It is. Now, I just want I want to now just look at confidence. So we're looking at the willingness side. Confidence versus commitment and motivation, which confidence can translate into insecure behaviours, and commitment and motivation can display unwillingness. Okay, so if I was to say to you, if you were to see somebody who was displaying insecure behaviours, what behaviours might you see? Share with me, shout out what kind of behaviours you might see. So somebody is insecure.
Lots of questions.
Yeah, so lots of questions.
Why me?
Yeah, why me? Yeah, why me? There's plenty of other people who could do this.
Anyone else?
So, yeah, don't pick on me. Let's take one more. Anything else you can think of?
Maybe also not wanting to update you on progress made, so avoiding.
Yeah. So avoiding. And I'm going to add another one to that. Well, another two actually. So another one to avoiding is refusal.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more I'm going to add to that is anxiety. Okay. I'm going to come back to those in a moment, but I just want now to look at commitment and motivation, which can present itself as unwilling. And I think it's important that we kind of understand that lack of these two things is how this can be displayed and the behaviours within it. Just so that we can understand, or we can certainly look at how sometimes the messages we get are different to what we're putting, to the perception we're putting on them. So what behaviours might we see here?
Procrastination, so not starting it.
So procrastination. Give me one more.
Maybe also just making excuses for lack of progress.
Yeah, excuses. I'm going to add another one here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do we ever see this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, if they're unwilling, poor performance, I'll do this half-heartedly because, doesn't really tick my box. So I'll kind of do it, but probably not going to put as much into it.
And maybe look to pass it on, the activity on to somebody else.
Yeah, pass on to somebody else. Let's get rid of it. Why do you think it's important to identify some of these?
Because you could very easily identify somebody as unwilling when actually they're lacking confidence.
Yeah.
So you could get it quite wrong.
Absolutely. If you are, we all place different meanings on some of these words. There are lots of similarities, but if we see someone who's asking lots of questions and we're not identifying that as a lack of confidence, or we're misdiagnosing, if you like, then ultimately comes back to we're going to misdiagnose where somebody is in terms of their performance readiness. And again, I want to sum this up by saying that people can be in all different styles of performance readiness for a multitude of different tasks.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, neither one place or another is a bad thing to be if it's required for that situation or for that task. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're
But
saying
we
that
have
for any one of us, we could be at one of those readiness levels from R1 to R4.
Yes. And actually, I'm going to, I have got an exercise or a flip chart I was going to do later, but I will do it now just to illustrate that. And actually, Nick, it's aimed at you. I picked you. So, no, I haven't gone through it yet.
Okay.
Hang on. But I haven't gone through the R. I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Can you come back to that question?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we are really nailing on the head here is that when we're looking at performance readiness, it's current performance. When we go on to our next slide here, in your books, you actually have a handout, which I'm going to ask you to grab now, which we've already completed step number 1. So what we have done is we have, in fact I've got it here as well. So we've identified a specific task. Okay, so we've spent quite a bit of time on that this morning. Assessing current performance readiness is where we are at now. And the key here is the person currently performing at a sustained acceptable level? And we know that when we're asking ourselves that question, it's not the can they, it's not are they capable, it's are they? So by answering this question correctly, as I said, there's no grey areas here, it's yes or no. If you can't answer this question confidently, a yes or no, what might that mean about step number 1?
You might have found that the task, you haven't got it to a granular enough level at that point, possibly?
Absolutely, yep, you're spot on. If you haven't defined the task enough and you're getting to that question in step 2 and you cannot say yes or no, the chances are that you haven't drilled down. And we did that a little bit earlier on, where some of you refined your task or added, took away from it to make it more specific, so that you were in a position where you can answer this question correctly. Now, if you answer this question correctly, yes or no, then if you answer this question incorrectly to the yes or no, so if you put here no they're not, but in fact, if you say yes they are when in fact no they're not, then you are going on to or leaning towards your follower-driven styles here. What consequence is that going to have in terms of matching appropriately?
That you're not going to give them what they need.
Yeah.
At that point in time with regard to the task.
Absolutely. And some of us were thinking earlier on when we were talking about engagement versus success, and I asked some of you, have you ever had a manager who's focused on one more than the other? And some of you are already thinking about how you have been managed or led in one way or another which wasn't appropriate. So by incorrectly diagnosing at this first question, you are potentially going to adopt a very wrong style. However, if you answer this question correctly to your yes or no, and let's just say we've said, okay, the task is the parallel park, okay? So the parallel park is this person performing to a sustained acceptable level. Let's go back to me, first time I've got in the car with my driving instructor. What would your answer be to that question?
No.
No, absolutely, big fat no. Now, the next question here is, am I confident, committed and or motivated? Now, if I were to answer this incorrectly, okay, now it's a pretty cut and dry with the parallel parking, we know that that is a no. But if there was some hesitation over it, perhaps we're between S1 and S2, if we misdiagnose here, we're still 50% likely to get it right. We're kind of next door, which is not ideal, but it's far better than being on the follower-driven side of the of the model, opposed to the leader-driven when that's where it should be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when we talk about confidence, commitment, and or motivated, we've already just broken those down, and I thought it was important that we do that so that we know what that stands for. What does that actually mean? So if I was to give you an example, which I can't think. So if I was to give you an example, tell me where I would be on the performance readiness scale. So I'm going to give you an example now.
Okay.
So I've delivered training courses for 20 years, very confident at it, about to deliver situational leadership for the first time. No previous history in doing so. Am I confident? Yeah. I was kind of confident. Am I committed? Absolutely. Totally committed to it. And am I motivated? Yeah, absolutely. This really ticks my box. Love the subject. Really interested in it. Where am I? So first question, is this person currently performing at a sustained acceptable level?
No.
No. It's quite harsh, isn't it? No. Well, I've delivered for years. But why is it a no?
Because you may have lived for years, but not on that subject.
Absolutely. So again, just drilling down, it's current. Yeah? Okay, so question number 2. Maybe you might be a bit kinder on me here. So am I confident, committed and motivated or motivated to do the task?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Because you've explained that you're confident to be able to do it, you're committed. There's a strong desire, and there's also a willingness, a real will there as well.
Okay, so I may not have, I was trying to in my wording, and I'm not sure whether you're picking one opposed to the other or not. But when I talked about confidence, can you remember what I said, or kind of how I presented how confident I was opposed to committed or motivated and motivated?
I'm pretty confident.
Yes. So, to me, I would be an R1.
Okay.
I'm assuming you did that on purpose. or either I've done it wrong. Because there would be probably some discussion between the leader and the follower, which is myself, to pick up on the cue that actually there might be something with the confidence element, just to double check.
Good.
Yeah? Because even though I can see why somebody would say, because I actually was hamming up these two. Yeah, I'm committed. Yeah, I'm motivated. Confidence. Yeah, I'm okay. Straight away, there's a little bit of a telltale sign there. Again, it might not be concrete, but there's something there that might tell you that there is a bit of confidence lacking, and that could translate to something else. So again, if we misdiagnose it, it's not the end of the world, but it might, a mismatch might have a consequence to how the follower takes on board the leader's style.
Well done.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, Nick, earlier on, so we've got our 4 performance readiness stages here. Now, if I was to say to you, in your job now, have a think about. I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier in coffee, so you've had a little bit of time to think about it. Have a think about and share with the group 4 specific individual tasks that you fall into, 1 for each performance readiness. So if you were in R1.
Yeah, R1.
R1 being the needing lots of task behaviour, but low relationship.
So unable and insecure or unwilling. That's definitely doing my monthly reporting.
Sounds like you've got a few followers in here. Okay, so monthly reporting. What's that, an R2?
An R2 is an able but confident or willing That would be learning to use LinkedIn as a marketing tool.
Okay. R3. So able but insecure or unwilling.
Assessments. I'm able to do them, I've done them for years, but I'm pretty unwilling.
All right, okay, and an R4.
An R4 would be, R4 would be, let's go with coaching.
Okay. So, what was the point of me asking you, do you think, here, to pick 4 different tasks that go into 4 different performance readiness stages?
To prove that we all have those 4 readiness levels.
Yeah, now, earlier on I mentioned that a performance readiness level is neither good nor bad. It's what's appropriate for the person at that time, or identifying that actually we all can be in 4 different performance readiness levels for 4 completely different tasks, and that can change. If I pick your coaching one here, Nick, I'm assuming that you do coaching regularly.
Yes.
Or fairly regularly, so it's something that in order to sustain that kind of R4 level, it's happening on a regular basis, and it's all going well. Wonderful. If you suddenly took 3 years out of that job and then went back to coaching, where do you think, would that change? Or where do you think it would change to if it did?
It could well change, and probably the likely place would be to R2, because I'd still be confident and or willing.
Yeah.
That may be ability, because there could be some new models or some new tools.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's very easy that the assumption can be made from a leader's perspective. Nick's done this for 20, 30 years. Just because he's had 3 years out of the role, or just because he's been, I don't know, on secondment for 6 months, that he's still at an R4 level. So then treating somebody or adapting a style to match an R4 readiness level would be inappropriate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just using that as an example. So you have the line here between R1 and R4, and I've referenced the model, and the line here indicates the same pivotal point that we have within our model when we're going from very much leader-driven to follower-driven. So we have 4 readiness levels and we have 4 styles. Where do you think the connection might be? We've got 4 and 4. Where do you think these 4 might fit in with these 4?
The numbers might connect to the numbers in the situation.
Absolutely.
Or leadership styles. So R1, S1, R2, S2.
Simple as that. Yeah, when we're talking about, somebody who is at a very low performance readiness level in a task, goes right back to what we said when we introduced the model this morning, which means that it is totally appropriate to have high task behaviour, low relationship. Because there's a lot of information or detail that needs to be provided by the leader. So what we're going to do now is going to split you into groups, and I'm going to get you to, we're going to have R1 through to R4. We've got those on the pre-prepared flip charts over there. And I'm going to ask group 1 to focus on R1. So we're looking at unable, insecure, unwilling. What behaviours do you think might present themselves from a follower perspective to the leader for somebody who is in an R1 performance readiness? And then the same for R2, R3 and R4. And then we're going to do some comparisons on kind of what we will come up with in about 15 minutes from now.